33. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, special remote procedures will be in place for this meeting. These procedures will allow for full board and public participation using audio. Thank you. Anyone with internet access should be able to hear this meeting. For public, if you can hear this meeting, you are currently listening to live audio only on YouTube. Please note there is no video for this meeting. Meeting documents are available and can be downloaded at the JekyllIsland.com website under Jekyll Island Authority Board of Directors. Public comments will be accepted by email during the meeting at mwebb@JekyllIsland.com. All applicable public comments will be read into the record during the appropriate committee section. All comments received via email will be read into the record at no more than 3 minutes in length during the appropriate committee section of the meeting. Board members, I will act as the moderator and introduce this format. Voting and discussion will be done by roll call. Please do not use speakerphone as it will cause feedback. Please state your name every time you speak. This will help both the public and the record identify your statements. Please use the mute on your phone when not speaking, and please state your name every time you begin to speak. I will now take the roll call again to see if there's any additional members. The only people we were missing was Mr. Bill Gross. Have you logged in, sir? Mr. Bill Gross? Okay, it looks like he is currently absent. All other attendees are present. Thank you. I will now turn over the meeting to Chairman Joe Wilkinson for his welcome.
Well, thank you so very much, and thank you to the staff for making all these arrangements. And these are interesting times, and I'm thankful that you all were able to adapt. I'd begin with, let's see, Mr. Kruger survived a tornado, from what I understand, and is doing well, hopefully.
Doing well. There may be some extraneous background noise because I'm still not able to get out of my driveway. You may hear a chainsaw.
I understand. I'm glad you're okay. Okay, so you don't have a report, Bob?
No. Historic Preservation Conservation Committee has no report today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and Mr. Gross is not here.
Mr. Chairman, I believe he has dialed in.
Oh, thank goodness, because Bill, if you're there, you're next up for the Finance Committee report. I don't hear him. Well, we can go forward and come back. The next is Dr. Evans with the Human Resources Committee, and I believe Jenna is going to give a report.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman and fellow board members. This time, Jenna Gross, our Director of Human Resources, will come forward and she will provide us a policy recommendation on contagious conditions. So, Jenna, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning. Yes, in your board packet, you received a new policy, contagious conditions, for your consideration. Now, this policy does support our commitment to provide a safe workplace and ensure the well-being of our employees, not just now, but all year round. And so it outlines expectations and guidelines for various contagious conditions, and provides, again, the outline and guidelines, including safe and healthy practices, absences, if somebody does have a contagious condition, whether or not to report to work, not report to work, and then requirements before returning to work if they are absent due to a contagious condition. So worth noting that obviously we would administer this policy in accordance with all federal and state laws and regulations, including ADA, FMLA, and any other regulations or items that are in force, at that time. So it is a staff recommendation that the board consider the adoption of the contagious conditions policy. Dr. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, I would like to make a recommendation that the board consider the approval of the contagious conditions policy that has been presented by Ms. Johnson.
Great. So that will be a committee recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else, Dr. Evans?
That's it, sir.
Okay, then we'll open the floor for any public comments which have been emailed.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind, let's do a roll call on that, see if there's a motion on the floor to accept that into committee, to pass that through committee.
That would be perfect. Thank you. Go ahead and take it.
Yes, the motion has been made, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All righty.
I will call the, thank you, and there was a second. I will call the roll of the Finance Committee. Buster Evans, Chair.
Here.
Is that yes? Accept
yes,
it,
aye.
Pass it, or nay? Yay, okay. Joe
Hey,
Wilkinson?
yay.
Joe Wilkinson, do you vote yay or nay?
Yay.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Kruger?
Yay.
Thank you. Joy Birch Meeks?
Yay.
Thank you. Dale Atkins?
Yay.
The contagious conditions policy passes.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes our report for this month. And we just want to say thanks to everybody on the staff for what they've done. And thank you for your support of this policy.
Thank you. Now we open to the floor. Any public comments?
I have received a number of public comments, sir, but none of them are pertaining to the HR committee.
Okay, thank you. So then we should be able to move forward to the marketing committee.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Gross indicates he is on the phone. If you'd like
well,
to go
then
back.
let's go back. Yes, thank you, Jonas. We'll go back to Bill Gross for his report, and there's a good bit here on the Finance Committee. Bill, go ahead.
Bill, are you muted?
Bill. Well, we'll go ahead and come back. Go ahead to the Marketing Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, can you hear me?
Joy Birch Meeks. And at this time,
Yep, go ahead.
Harris, okay, is going to update us. They've been busy, she and her staff, on keeping the public updated through various social media formats. And Kate is going to provide an update at this time. Kate?
Okay, thank you, Joy. So
Before
indeed,
Kate
these
starts,
are
just for the public and boards to know, we're on page 38 of the packet.
all right. Thank you, Michelle. So these are indeed uncertain and different times. So this is going to give you an overview of some of what we have out there. And of course, it is changing constantly, and we will give you the latest as well. We've seen it kind of going in 3 phases. The first one is very much focused within the initial crisis communication, what's happening, what's going on, overlapping with a time period where we have a lot of our people are at home. So you will see in the packet, when we look at our immediately what would happen and how our website is being used. It's a very strong source of information. It's right at the top of what's going on, what's open, what's closed. We are making sure that we are showing only things that are open, that can be enjoyed, that are appropriate. In terms of immediate crisis information, that is, you'll see an example, the travel updates page. We update that constantly as protocols, executive orders, and we also have a kind of a live chart there where you can see the businesses and their status of being open or closed. In addition to that, we have the business resources that we had for our Jekyll Island business community that we worked on with the finance and legal team to give them some resources to direct to as they navigate this time. And so while that's going on, of course, people are spending a lot of time at home and therefore online, and also, our Facebook channel, which is definitely a way to take the pulse and to communicate with people. So you'll see there all the content is kind of targeted to how can you connect to Jekyll at home? How can you, things that you can do in home, keep the engagement, keep the people close, because even if we can't physically be on Jekyll Island, maybe people are only here 10 or 20% of the time, but they can dream about it for the rest of the time. And so our approach here is to give them a little bit of this escape. And you'll see if you continue, we did a very short video that did wonderfully well, and it also inspired people to talk to us. Hey, this is what I need to know. This is what I miss. And then we expanded it to a series of videos that people can take and then can watch online. You can just even have it playing in the background of the 30-minute virtual escape with different Jekyll vistas. But the first thing that we did, and the thing that we really felt was true to who we are and what our educational mission was to recognize that so many people are at home with their kids, educating at home. So we work with the Georgia Sea Turtle Center colleagues to put out Scoot School. So that came out right in the very beginning of this. It was a daily series of lessons, materials, online. So you knew that every day you had something to do that was turtle related with your kids. And there's a lot of creativity. We leveraged a lot of the wonderful educational content that they had. We paired it with some of our, kind of marketing mindset, and we promoted it right away as a resource, because I think we really have to be always cognizant of what are we giving people that they need, that they can use. So you'll see here that the coverage that we received from that and the people that wanted to use it was surpassed our expectations, from USA Today to outlets regionally, nationally, social, and then also teachers who said, thank you for giving us this resource. News outlets are using this resource to put on their websites in Jacksonville and Savannah, for example, because they need that content. People are looking for something to watch, something to do. So all of this that we have also goes out to the for the group sales side. Of course, that's very important, and our sales team is working as hard as ever. Yes, business and groups are shifting, but what we're trying to do and what we're seeing is a group that might be moving their meeting back or canceling it for this month or next month, trying to add to that, adding another year, moving it into the future, navigating how do we do that. Well, at the same time, these meeting planners are all meeting within their own associations and groups, and we've been very active on that. And we've also been sharing these content pieces with them so that they can use it. When we had an opportunity to speak to these groups, we allowed them to bring in video messages. We put it together for them. So the focus has really been on that connection. And then just to, kind of give you where we are now, we have, we've been developing our recovery plan, looking ahead, and we have been in constant contact with our hoteliers. We do regular conference calls with them, and we are working together so that we are making sure that we are ready for, more of an opening back up, that our guests are going to be not only, feel comfortable, but they're also going to be safe. And so we're working with them on unified and communicating unified safety protocols, and also initiatives to, bring people back. We feel that the kind of place that people will want to visit as they return to travel is going to be somewhere that is uncrowded and quiet and peaceful and kind of in tune with what Jekyll Island has been all along. So that collaboration has been, very positive and more important than ever, and we expect it to continue. That's it.
Great, thank you.
Kate. Mr. Chairman, that concludes our report, but I do want to commend Kate and her staff and really all of the staff at Jekyll Island for continuing to evolve during these challenging times and keeping Jekyll in the forefront of folks' mind. And most of all, as Kate just said, keeping an eye toward the future as we return to some sense of normalcy.
Oh, great. Joy, thank you so much. And to Kate, thank you. Open the floor for public comment, if we have any which have been emailed. I don't guess we have any.
For the committee of the whole, but I have not yet received any for any other committees. So we'll wait for the committee of the whole to read those public comments, sir.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, no report on the legislative committee.
Joe, this is Jones again.
Yes.
I have been in communication with Bill. He was having trouble. He could hear us, and he was answering, but we couldn't hear him. I don't know if he's there now or not. Bill, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now? Hello.
Good.
Can
well,
you
let's
hear me
go
now?
to the. We can.
Yes, sir, we
can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yes.
All right. Well, why don't we go to the Finance Committee? Bill Gross.
Very good. Thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but I will start. First of all, board members have the February 2020 financial, traffic reports, and hotel reports in their board packets. Yes.
Sorry, we have a correction on the agenda for the Finance Committee. This is Marjorie, sorry. The item D on the agenda, the Georgia Trauma Commission grant, round 1, the agenda shows an extra number there. The number should be 1,452.31. We have an extra 3 in there.
Okay.
And then under item E, it should be 1,726.54. There's a comma there.
Perfect. We have that. Thank you, Marjorie.
You're welcome.
Okay, so you have the February 2020 financials, traffic reports, and hotel reports in your board packets. We're not going to spend the time since the information is in the packet. We're going to focus on March. However, if you have any questions, please feel free to call to chime in. The March financial statements, the revenues for March were $1,712,456, which is $493,000 less than budget for the month. Year-to-date revenues through February 28th were strong. Hang on one second, guys. I'm getting some feedback. Maybe this will be a little bit better. We're strong, and we're $807,000 better than budget. March revenues started off strong but dropped significantly when the virus pandemic hit our area. Measures to control the spread of the virus on the federal, state, and local level resulted in the closure of several of our amenities, including the convention center. While the revenue variance in March was large, our year-to-date revenues are actually $314,000 or 1% better than budgeted and $836,000 better than the prior year-to-date revenues. The largest variances were the business lease revenues were $60,000 better than budget, and hotel tax revenues were $6,000 better than budget. These revenues are reported to JIA in arrears and are reflected of the hotel and business revenues in February. Parking revenues were $152,000 less than budget for March. Closure of island businesses as well as the beaches during spring break season had a major impact on the revenues and traffic counts at the entry gate. Amenity revenues were $415,000 less than budget for the month, also due to the closures. The convention center revenues were $44,000 less than budget. The last event held was on March the 14th. Golf revenues were $168,000 less than budget. While they remained open all month, the number of guests playing golf dropped significantly. Museum revenues were $103,000 less than budget. The Mosaic and other museum locations were closed on March the 17th. Georgia Sea Turtle Center revenues were $96,000 less than budget. They also closed to customers on March the 17th. Mini golf and bike revenues were $13,000 less than budget. While this location remained open all month, the number of guests was significantly lower than anticipated. The expenses for March were $2,201,000, which is $329,000 less than budget for the month. Year-to-date expenses were $1.8 million less than budget and were $297,000 higher than the prior year-to-date expenses. In anticipation of the negative revenue impacts due to the virus, all departments were notified on March the 12th of an immediate hiring freeze on any open staff positions. Additionally, until further notice, all new expenditures require review and approval by the Chief Accounting Officer and the Executive Director. The largest variances for the month were human resources expenses were $136,000 less than budget. Supplies and material expenses were $46,000 less than budget. Repairs maintenance expense were $28,000 less than budget. Contract expenses were $88,000 less than budget, and utility expenses were $18,000 less than budget. Net operating cash loss for March is $287,745, which is $164,000 worse than the budgeted net operating loss of $123,595. Year-to-date net operating cash is $2.1 million better than budget and $539,000 better than prior year-to-date income. The March traffic statistics: the total traffic count for March was 79,291 vehicles, which was 33,256 less vehicles than March of 2019. It's about 40%. Year-to-date traffic count is 242,326, which is 28,761 less than year-to-date 2019. The March hotel reports. Revenues reported by the hotels for $2.6 million, which is $1.9 million less than March of 2019. Occupancy rate was 46.6, which is down from 80.3 in March 2019. Revenue per available room was $72.63, which is down from $135.99 in March of 2019. ADR, average daily rate, was $155.87, which is down from $169.44 in March of 2019. The calendar year of 2020, revenues reported by the hotels are $8.6 million, which is still $49,000 more than year-to-date of 2019. Occupancy rate was 57.8%, which is down from 61.8% over year-to-date 2019. Available room, $82.03, which is down from $92.06 over year-to-date 2019. And the ADR, average daily rate, of $142, which is down from $149 over year-to-date 2019. Those are financial highlights for March. Any questions on those?
Bill, we don't have any questions. This is Jones, but I do remind people that if you're just following along on YouTube, you need to mute the YouTube. I think that will help with some of the echoing. And Michelle, if you'll make sure that our AV persons are moving the slides along on YouTube as well.
Sure. Yes, sir. Thank you for the reminder about the YouTube audio. I'd like to let the audience know we just finished up with page 22, but I would like to remind everyone watching that the YouTube is static. It's only a single frame that just gives information. People need to download and follow along in their packet from the website.
Okay.
Thank you.
So,
Michelle, if you will continue to call out the page numbers so that people that are following along can follow, that would be good.
Thank you so much, sir. I'd be happy to. We're moving on to page 23 for the next item of business.
Okay. At this point in time, we'd like to call Marjorie Johnson, Chief Accounting Officer, to discuss the fireworks tax grant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Marjorie. The Jekyll Island Fire Department was recently notified that they had been selected to receive a fireworks tax grant from the Georgia Firefighter Standards and Training Council. This is a matching grant with a funding requirement from the JIA of $807, with $7,259 coming from the fireworks tax grant. The funds typically spent on turnout gear for the firefighters. If you have any questions on this grant, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, the staff request approval to accept the fireworks tax grant in the amount of $7,259 to purchase mount gear for the firefighters.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the fireworks grant of $7,259 to purchase turnout gear for the Jekyll Island Fire Department as recommended by staff?
So moved.
Mark Williams, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Mr. Kruger?
Any discussion? Very good. We have the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Call the roll
Aye.
on the vote.
Any opposed?
We're going to do roll call.
Mr.
Okay.
Gross, if you don't mind, I'll do the roll call on this. Bill
Okay.
Gross, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Joe Wilkinson.
Yes.
Thank you. Bob Kruger.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Trip Tolleson.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Buster Evans.
Yes.
Glenn Willard.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Michelle, you ready for the next item C?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. That's on page 25 of the packet.
Okay. I'd like to call Marjorie Johnson once again, the Chief Accounting Officer, to present the FireWise grant of $5,000 to the Jekyll Island Fire Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Jekyll Island has been recognized as a Georgia FireWise community since 2009. We recently received notification that we were approved for a FireWise Community Hazard Mitigation Grant in the amount of $5,000. These funds will be used for expenses related to our fire buffer maintenance project. The main tool we used in the buffer maintenance is our forestry mulcher machine. The grants will be spent on repair and maintenance of the mulching head. That mulching head needs regular blade and teeth maintenance to optimize its performance. The grant funds must be expended by April 30th, 2020, and all reports and paperwork must be finalized by May 15th, 2020. If you have any questions on this grant, I'd be happy to answer those. If not, the staff hereby request approval to accept the FireWise grant in the amount of $5,000 for hazard mitigation and fuel reduction projects on Jekyll Island.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the FireWise grant of $5,000 to Jekyll Island Fire Department as recommended by staff?
Mr. Chairman, Bob Kruger, I so move.
Is there a second?
Second. This is Tripp.
Thank you. Having heard a motion and a second, if there's no discussion, I'll call the roll. Bill Gross, Chair.
Yes.
Joe Wilkinson.
Yes.
Thank you. Bob Kruger.
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Williams.
Yes.
Trip Tolleson.
Yes.
Dr. Buster Evans.
Yes.
Glenn Willard.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Thank you. Michelle, are you ready for item
The next
D?
item of business, thank you. The next item of business will be on page 27.
At this point in time, I'd like to call Marjorie Johnson, the Chief Accounting Officer, to present the Georgia Trauma Commission Grant Round 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Marjorie. The Jekyll Island Fire Department was notified by the Georgia Trauma Commission that we have been awarded an EMS trauma-related equipment grant in the amount of $1,452.31. In the 2019 trauma grant, the fire department requested tablets for the ambulances in order to be able to complete their reports in the field. This year, what we want to use those funds for is for equipment to mount the tablets in the vehicle, as well as keyboards and pens for the tablets. There are no matching funds for this grant. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those now. If not, the staff hereby request approval to accept the Georgia Trauma Commission grant in the amount of $1,452.31 for trauma-related equipment to be used on the ambulances.
This is Tripp. I make a motion we approve.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Hearing a motion and a second, is there any discussion from the board on this item? Hearing none, I will call a roll. Bill Gross, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. Joe Wilkinson.
Yes.
Thank you. Bob Kruger.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Williams. Commissioner Mark Williams. We appear to have lost him for a moment. Tripp Tollison.
Yes. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. That's Commissioner Williams for a yes. Tripp Tollison.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Buster Evans.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn Willard.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. The next item of business will be on page 31 of your packet.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Marjorie Johnson to present the Georgia Trauma Commission Grant Round Number 2, $1,726.54 to the Jekyll Island Fire Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The fire department was notified recently of a second Georgia Trauma Commission grant in the amount of $1,726.54. The grant award was based on the number of ambulances in the fire department, and for this grant, we were given a list of pre-approved equipment to choose from up to the grant amount. The grant funds must be expended by April 30th, 2020. If you have any questions on this grant, I'd be happy to answer those. If not, the staff hereby request approval to accept the Georgia Trauma Commission grant in the amount of $1,726.54 for trauma-related equipment used on our ambulances.
Is there a motion to accept the Georgia Trauma Commission Grant Round Number 2, $1,726.54 to the Jekyll Island Fire Department as recommended by staff?
This is Buster Evans, and I make the motion.
Thank you, Dr. Evans.
Is there a second?
Second, Glenn Willard.
Thank you, Mr. Willard. Having heard a motion and a second, is there any discussion on this item? Hearing none, I will call the roll. Mr. Bill Gross, Chair.
Yes.
Joe Wilkinson.
Yes.
Thank you. Bob Kruger.
Yes.
Commissioner Mark Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. Tripp Tollison.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Buster Evans.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn Willard.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously. As we will now turn the floor over to Joe Wilkinson to open it up for public comment.
Okay, we are open for public comment.
I have received no public comment for this committee.
Okay. Well, then, I believe we are ready to move to the committee of the whole. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. We will go to page 47 of the packet.
Mr. Chairman,
So this would be
Bill Gross.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Bill.
Listen, I would like to commend the staff. At this time, we're in unprecedented times, and I think that they've done a phenomenal job of trying to navigate with cost control and making the island as safe and operational as possible. So a lot of kudos to those members behind the scenes that are making that happen.
Thank you. I mean, I agree. It's just outstanding. We are now in the committee of the whole. And do I need a roll call on that, or can we maintain what we have?
I believe we can maintain, sir.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. And I was looking at first reading 2020-1, prosecution of ordinances. Is that correct? Melissa would Melissa introduce that? Would present it?
Yes, sir. This is Melissa Cruther speaking. This is amendment to an ordinance, section 1-11, prosecution of ordinances, presented to you for a first reading today. As my memo says, the authority has recently hired a full-time code enforcement officer. We previously had a part-time one. Now we have moved the position to a full-time one. This person will, be doing general code enforcement duties and also some building permits and things. In preparation for this, I was reviewing the ordinances, and our ordinances, I think, were written a while ago when we didn't have this position, and they didn't really allow for, or it was unclear if the ordinance allowed for a code enforcement officer to write citations to enforce our ordinances, or whether that duty was left solely in the hands of Georgia State Patrol. So I have amended the ordinances in consultation with the AG's office and the Georgia State Patrol to allow our code enforcement officer to issue citations on our Jekyll Island ordinances. They will not be taking over duties of Georgia State Patrol or encroaching on their jurisdiction in any manner. Both Georgia State Patrol and our code enforcement officer, if this passes, will be able to write citations for violations of Jekyll Island Code. So this is what it does. The other thing it does is it prescribes a different method of service for violations concerning real property. That is in the Georgia Code, and we are just copying that. And it makes another slight amendment where it references the Jekyll Island Authorities Association. We just changed the word to authority. Again, this is a first reading, so no action by the board is to be taken at this time. Does anyone have any questions?
If there are no questions, I will need to call the roll for the discussion. Hearing no questions once, hearing no questions twice, closing this item. Thank you. The next item will be on page 54 of your packet.
This is another first reading, as I understand.
Yes, sir, it is. This is Melissa Cruther speaking. Well, it's correct. It's a first reading as revised. The first reading was done in May of 2019, and Mr. Carswell will go into that. But so technically, this is a first reading as revised.
Good. Okay. Then I would. Is Ben doing the briefing?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Who's doing the briefing?
Ben Carswell.
Okay. Ben, did you want to comment?
Yes, please. I'll give a quick summary. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
I'm glad to have the opportunity, with so much uncertainty surrounding us, to talk about something that pertains to something that is certain, and that is that sea turtles will certainly be nesting on Jekyll Island again, starting with their usual nesting season, which begins in May and runs through October. And you all are aware that we have a ordinance on Jekyll Island that pertains to lighting that is visible from the nesting beaches of Jekyll Island. And that ordinance was originally passed in 2009, and so it's been in place for a little over 10 years. And I think most folks agree has been an important ordinance. The purpose of the ordinance is to protect nesting sea turtles and hatchling sea turtles emerging from their nests from potential adverse effects of artificial lighting. Sea turtles can be disoriented by light, especially in certain wavelengths. So the ordinance is in place, modeled after ordinances that came before and continue in Florida to do our best to prevent that happening. And particularly important that it's been in place over a period of time when Jekyll Island has been through a revitalization with new facilities built and renovated. And so a lot of new lighting decisions were made during the time of this ordinance. And we're pleased to say that the ordinance has been successful in that the data collected by the Georgia Sea Turtle Center in collaboration with Georgia DNR do not indicate that we've had any specific adverse effects of beach lighting on Jekyll Island during that time period. So that's good. We're glad we've had that ordinance. We've learned some lessons along the way, and we believe in constant improvement here on Jekyll. And some of the challenges with the ordinance have just been in its interpretation. The original language had a lot of places where there are ambiguities that unfortunately allowed different people to come to reasonable but widely varying conclusions about what was expected. And for someone who is seeking to comply with such ordinance, that's problematic. You need certainty and consistency, and it's problematic in meeting the public's expectations for what we're trying to enforce. So that drive to improve was behind our original draft, which you all that have been on the board since March of last year will recall. But due to extensive public comment and official comment from DNR on that initial first reading last year, even though this is a Jekyll Island ordinance enacted by this board and that must be enforced by our staff, what we heard loud and clear is that due to DNR's responsibilities preserving the wildlife of the state and responsibilities vis-a-vis the Endangered Species Act, that this is really not something you can move forward with successfully without a pretty thorough collaboration with DNR. And so we heard that loud and clear when we went back to the drawing board with DNR at the table, and we had 4 sit-down half-day sessions working with DNR to really hash out an improved Jekyll Island beach lighting ordinance. 3 of those sessions were professionally facilitated, and JIA provided for that facilitation service. We had with DNR, we had a collaboratively developed goal statement for the sessions, and that was to produce an improved Jekyll Island beach lighting ordinance that advances the protection of sea turtles by minimizing and eliminating the impacts of artificial light while facilitating consistent understanding, interpretation, action, and enforcement. In the interest of time, I will not go through each of the individual changes in the ordinance. They are the number of individuals changes is substantial, largely because we were seeking to make the language tighter and less open to interpretation, and so there were a lot of semantic changes that didn't necessarily have a substantive consequence for how the ordinance is communicated and enforced. But the changes that are more significant, more substantive, or could be perceived as so, are outlined in table form in the memo, following the memo in your packet. I will bring attention just to some key areas of change, not specific changes, but I want you to know that we tightened definitions pertaining to beaches and dunes in ways that are agreeable to Jekyll Island Authority and to the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. We specified clearly that the ordinance does pertain to interior lighting, and that was or is the case with the existing ordinance, but you can understand how that would be confusing because the ordinance language does not include the word interior, so it is to be assumed. And if you approve these changes at your subsequent meeting, that would be clearly spelled out. We updated categorical prohibitions to clarify exactly what is prohibited. We updated categorical allowances to maintain consistency with the Florida wavelength standard. So our current ordinance has a wavelength standard specified for the light. You know, this is the amber or red light that is less likely to disturb the turtles. That has evolved in Florida over years, and ours had not been adjusted to maintain consistency with that standard. And finally, we clarified that underwater pool lighting should be designed to avoid illuminating objects such as trees and buildings above the water that may be visible from the beach. If this is not avoided, underwater pool lighting will be required to meet the wavelength standards. This is kind of an emerging issue as pool design brings the pools closer in closer proximity to hotel facilities, and as lighting technology has changed to result in some really bright white underwater LED pool lights. So we're attempting to get ahead of that. We had spent over 60 staff hours, including multiple staff, director of the Sea Turtle Center, myself, executive director, and general counsel in these sessions with DNR. So really a lot of effort in this, and today bringing it to you for your consideration. This is the first reading, so no action by the board is to be taken at this time. However, of course, happy to answer questions, and the board may propose amendments if it would like to see any such amendments incorporated before adoption of this ordinance.
Great. Ben, thank you so much.
Chairman, this is Melissa Cruthers. May I comment?
Please, Counselor.
So I'm not sure if Ben mentioned this, and Ben, I'm sorry if you did. We did receive a letter from Georgia DNR agreeing with the proposed changes in the ordinance. They, you know, as Mr. Carswell said, we have spent significant time together working through this, and they sent us a letter in approval of the proposed ordinance as currently written. Furthermore, we have already received some public comments on this. We have posted this proposed ordinance online for public comment since February 28th through April 6th. And we suspended public comment only to allow us time to coordinate, to gather the public comments and submit them to the board for this meeting, which you have. It will go back up online after this meeting for additional public comments. We also had a town hall or a public meeting with DNR where we went through the ordinances. We had members of the public in attendance from all various groups, and we received lots of feedback there. We had a question and answer session. I thought it was a good meeting. So, you know, we are still open to public comments, and we will continue with that. If this moves forward for a second reading, that will occur at the May 2020 board meeting, and the availability to comment will be up on the website through May 7th, 2020, again, in order for us to collect the public comments and present them to the board.
Thank you. Thank you. Michelle, do we want to take any board comments?
Yes, sir. I would encourage you to open the floor for any board comments.
It's so open.
Sir?
Please.
Mr. Wilkinson, do you have any comments on this matter?
No comment.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Oh, she's calling roll. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
That's
I appreciate it.
I'll wait.
Mr. Kruger, do you have any comments?
I have no comment.
Thank you. Mr. Gross?
No comments.
Thank you. Mr. Tripp Tolson?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Birchmead?
No comments.
Thank you. Mr. Buster Evans?
No comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Ben and his staff and Jones and the entire group for the collaboration we had to get to where we're at. I know it took a lot of time and effort on both sides, but I think the end work product is a good one. The great news is, as y'all all know, we've had several years of record sea turtle nesting, so we'll certainly want to continue that, and just appreciate Ben's willingness and my staff's willingness to get together and work on this difficult issue. So thanks a lot, Ben.
Commissioner, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Mr. Glenn Willard?
No comment.
Thank you. Mr. Dale Atkins? Okay, I do not hear from Mr. Atkins. I feel that there's no more discussion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you so very much. Thank you. And again, this is, we're not having a vote on this today. That will come later. I'm ready to move forward if my esteemed general counsel is with the next item, which is the Jekyll Harbor Marina sale right of first refusal. Counselor?
On page 79 of the packet.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Melissa Cruther speaking. We have received notice from the Jekyll Harbor Marina. This is the one on the south end. Some new people can get them confused. That they have received an offer to purchase the marina from Zachary and Stephanie Gilbert. The marina has a lease with the authority. They have had one since 1990 and it expires currently in 2056. They received an offer to purchase the marina for $3,050,000 with an anticipated closing date in late July. Although I will, put a side note there, we know how closings go, those can get extended. The current lease with the Jekyll Marina provides the authority with a right of first refusal to purchase the property at the same terms and conditions of the offer made. So this action is presented to the board for consideration of whether or not the authority wishes to exercise its option to purchase the marina for $3,050,000.
Mr. Chairman, if I could comment my recommendation, this is Jones Hooks. You'll note on your sheet, page 79, the executive director's recommendation is that the authority decline the right to purchase the marina. The reason for this is board members have, since I have been with the authority, have encouraged me to move forward with all haste in making sure that any amenity or project that the JIA would undertake would be a project that only the JIA could undertake, and that if there was an opportunity for the private sector to do it better than the JIA, that the private sector should perform. And obviously, the marina has been performing for many years now, and operating without involvement of the JIA in the operations, including the not only the docking of vessels, but also the restaurant at the marina and the hoteling of boats. And so I think it would be advisable for us to continue to have the marina operated by the private sector. So that is my recommendation. Additionally, with the present situation as far as COVID-19, I'm not sure that there would be funds available to purchase the marina. So that's the reasoning behind my recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you, Jones. Michelle, we will take board comments by roll call.
Thank you, sir. Chairman Wilkinson.
No comment.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Kruger.
I completely agree with Jones. I don't think we need to be in the marina business. I think wherever the private sector can perform, we should allow the private sector to perform. I agree totally with not opting into the first right of refusal.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Gross.
I agree with staff recommendations.
Thank you. Mr. Tripp Tollefson.
I concur. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Birch Meeks.
No comment.
Thank you. Dr. Buster Evans.
No comment other than I concur with staff recommendation.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Williams.
I concur with staff recommendations.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn Willard.
I agree with staff recommendations as well.
Thank you. Mr. Dale Atkins.
I agree that we don't need to be in the marina business. My only comment would be, is the $3,050,000, is that a fair market value for the leasehold interest, or would it be worth any more than that? Has an
Mr.
appraisal
Atkins,
been done?
we are not sure an appraisal has been done, and I will leave that to the parties.
Well, yeah, my only concern is if it's worth $3,050,000 or less, certainly, but is it worth $4 million? I'd hate to see a private party come in at $3 million and turn around and flip it for $4 million and make $1 million on something that we could have possibly made some money out. That's my only concern. I definitely agree and concur with we do not want to be operating the marina. And that's my only comment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion?
This is Jones Hooks. Mr. Chairman, just to note that if in fact the board were to vote to decline the right of first refusal, this is not the last time that this particular item will come before the board. and there will be additional consideration as far as the assignment and assumption of the lease.
Right. Thanks for the clarification. Okay. If I don't hear any other comment, I will entertain a motion to decline the authority's right to purchase the Jekyll Island Marina as recommended by the Executive Director, and have the Jekyll Island Authority General Counsel communicate the board's decision to the Jekyll Island Harbor Marina.
Bob, this is Tripp. I make a motion we decline.
Thank you, Tripp.
Is there a second?
Second.
Right. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Michelle, you'll do it by roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr.
Okay.
Joe Wilkinson.
Here. No comment.
Mr. Kruger.
We're voting in favor of the motion, correct?
We are not yet voting.
Discussion.
Yes.
No discussion.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Gross.
No discussion.
Thank you. Tripp Tollison.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Birch Meeks.
No discussion.
Thank you. Dr. Buster Evans.
No discussion.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Williams.
None.
Thank you. Glenn Willard.
None.
Thank you. Dale Atkins.
No other discussion.
Thank you. Hearing no other discussion, I'm going to roll call the vote. Yay or nay from these committee members. Joe Wilkinson.
Yay.
Thank you. Bob Kruger.
Yay.
Bill Gross.
Yay.
Thank you. Tripp Tollison.
Yay.
Thank you. Joy Birch Meeks.
Yay.
Thank you. Dr. Buster Evans.
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Williams.
Yay.
Thank you. Glenn Willard.
Yay.
Thank you. Dale Atkins.
Yay.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is, Jones, are you going to lead this? I've got Jones, Marjorie, Noel, Jenna.
Yes, sir. It's a cast
COVID.
out. I'll lead out, Mr. Chairman.
Please do. Thank you.
Item of business is on page 83 of your packet today.
And there's no vote.
Not on this presentation, Mr. Chairman, but it is it does lead to your item number E under Committee of the Whole.
Right.
And as we introduce this today, Mr. Chairman, I think it's important for, you've already received an update from a marketing standpoint as far as some of the changes that were undertaken regarding the public interface and interface with our hoteliers and other groups as far as COVID-19. But we wanted to drill down and share with you the realities regarding the authority itself and also the island. And I think it's important because some folks frequently feel that Jekyll is isolated and that Jekyll is basically an island unto itself. I think it's important for everyone to realize that we are not immune to COVID-19 on Jekyll Island, that there are confirmed cases in every zip code within Glenn County, and that would include Jekyll Island. So therefore, it's important not to think that you can come to Jekyll Island and that you are totally immune, because that is not the case. As we move forward, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just talk briefly. I know in the Financial Committee, Mr. Gross shared with you the February and March traffic counts, and you began to see that after the announcements of sheltering in place that our traffic counts began to really take a dive during the month of March. But we actually shared with you a sheet that looks at traffic counts through the first 19 days of April and looks at the paying guests versus the annual pass versus the just the total April traffic versus last April. And if you look, we're in paying guests, we were down, for instance, on the 19th of April, we were down 79% over last year or under last year. If you look at the annual pass traffic, we were down 65%. And so if you look at traffic overall on that day, comparing this year with last year, we were down 72%. If you look at the first 19 days of the month, we were down overall 67% in traffic. And that's just an indicator. While that's not our most important generator of funds, that is an indicator of what the rest of our activities through the authority look like. I also have the latest amenity revenues through the first 19 days of the month. And if you look at the 19 days, the first 19 days of the month, our total year or month-to-date revenues were 7%. And if you look at the pacing target of budget, we should have been at 63%. And so you see such a huge discrepancy there as far as where we should be budgetarily versus where we really are. And so I think those are sobering numbers, and I wanted to bring those items to your attention as we look at traffic counts and amenities and how that may impact us. Luckily, we had a very, very good year, as you all know, including even the winter months, surprisingly good months, better than budget. Even Mr. Kruger, a sandbag budget, better than that. And unfortunately, we have seen a huge downturn, but the good thing is that those numbers have helped us. I'm going to ask Marjorie if she would to take you then through the next section, which is looking at some financial forecasting that I asked her to do, and that Marjorie and I have spent a lot of time looking at, how these numbers impact the authority. And so Marjorie, if you would go, and I suppose that would be page 88 for those looking on a packet.
Yes, sir. That is on page 88. And if you'll look at that chart that's provided on that page, we provided a snapshot view of our projected revenues and expenses for March through May, based on the anticipated impact of the coronavirus. And as Joan said, we had done really well up through February, and we had built up a cushion of about $2.3 million, which ultimately, if that money wasn't spent, would have gone toward capital projects and contributions to the cash reserve fund. If you'll look at that chart, the numbers in kind of a yellowish-orange color, those are actually updated actuals for March. And based on that, our revenues were down 22%, and our expenses were 14% less than budgeted. Our loss for the month was $288,000, which was $164,000 worse than our budgeted loss of $124,000. But because we had built up a cushion this year, we were able to cover that shortfall without having to tap into our reserve fund. If you'll look at the April, which is in the peach color, on the chart, I provide the estimated impacts to both revenues and expenses, for the month of April. And based on my calculations, with a lot of our amenities being closed at that time, I think our revenues are gonna be down about 77%, and that we'll be able to reduce our budgeted expenses by about 20%. That would leave us with a net loss for the month of about $1.1 million. We're actually budgeting for income of $442,000, so that would give us a budget shortfall of about $1.5 million for April. Our financials were so strong for the beginning of the year, we'll also be able to cover this shortage without having to dip into our reserve funds. Next, if you'll look at the May data on the chart, which is in blue, you'll see that the estimated revenues and expenses are expected to result in a loss of a little over $1 million for the month. However, we were anticipating revenues of $787,000, so we end up with a board budget shortfall of a little over $1.8 million for May, if this continues the way we've been going through May. And at that point, we'd be able to cover about $550,000 of the remaining cushion, and then we would have to dip into reserves for about $1,275,000 to cover the rest of it. Jones, do you have any other comments on that?
And I think one thing that Marjorie just said that's very important, Mr. Chairman, obviously, and members of the board, obviously these estimates were prepared earlier. And so with the governor's announcement yesterday, there could be some changes in these numbers, but this is very conservative, looking at everything we can possibly do as far as expenses and postponing contracts, which we have done, and also then going into even the next section of this issue, which is obviously we're looking at how we interface with the public as well as what we're doing with employees. But right now, these are the very best numbers that we could come up with as far as projections.
Okay.
This is Marjorie. I would like to note, too, that even when things open back up, some of our revenues will lag because, like hotel motel tax and percentage rent, we get in the following month. So even if things are looking much better in May, that will still impact our June revenues a little bit. So we're hoping things come back pretty quick in May.
I will tell you also, board members, that we have had many discussions with various departments. Of course, one of the major ones of interest is the convention center. And because it is such a driver for traffic as far as hotels and other amenities on the island, including restaurants and shops. We have seen lots of cancellations. Most of the cancellations, however, have been rescheduled. Our sales staff has been doing a great job. Kate's been involved in that as well. Just a great job in working with the convention center and the Westin Hotel, particularly because that hotel so often is the prime hotel for a group at the convention center, but our other hotels as well, in in creating new slots for room nights and to try and work out the timing of rescheduling convention groups. We do think, and what we're planning now is, even as Marjorie said, when things begin to occur again as far as business activity, we think that the convention center will be a lagger, because we think the primary interest in most groups is going to be to try and get back into their offices and try and get back into some sort of routine. And so the idea that they would be saying, hey, let's go to a convention on Jekyll Island is probably not going to be top of mind. Now, we are looking at some strategies otherwise with the hoteliers as far as leisure travel and trying to get others back to Jekyll Island. But when we look at it from a convention business, we have to look at that in our forecasted model that Marjorie has included that in these forecasts.
Well, thank you so much.
Any questions, Mr. Chairman, that you or others might have on the board?
Great, thank you. I know Michelle was going to take board comments by roll call.
Yes, sir. Comments on this COVID-19 update and response. Mr. Joe.
Mr. Chairman, you may want to wait because we're not finished with the entire presentation. I was just referring to if you had any comments on the financial forecasting. But as far as roll call comments, there are two other sections I'd like for us to cover if we could, please, sir.
Absolutely. Please.
All right. Noel, if you're available, could we go right into the public-facing aspect?
Yes, sir, and thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just some quick background. FEMA declared this COVID-19 pandemic to be a FEMA-covered event on the 13th of March, and they opened up the application window on the 25th of March. We applied on the 26th of March and got approval to be refunded certain monies on April 7th. Right now, we have over $20,000 worth of materials that we've spent on sanitizing and signage and other things that I'll go into. But it's good to know that some of this cost is going to be picked up by FEMA, although you have to go through all their paperwork to get it. We're in the process of making that happen, and we are due to start the closeout for April here in a week, and go ahead and turn in an application for our first payment for materials, equipment, and labor at the end of April, and then we'll open up another project for May to try to keep that cash flow going. We've taken several measures to protect employees and the public. Some of it has been with education, signage, which you see on page 92 about social distancing. We've also taken some steps on page 92. You can see the campground store. We put a red line on the ground that gave you 6 feet of distance between the counter and the where the employees are in the public. And we've also put plexiglass up, and it's really hard to see because it's clear plexiglass in that picture on page 92. But we've put plexiglass because at times the customers have to approach the counter, and that made the staff feel a lot better that they had that level of protection available to them. Public facilities, we've had to make some closures, mainly bathrooms, because of two things: employees to service them and visitation was down. So we took those into consideration and closed quite a few of the bathrooms, but we strategically left some bathrooms open. The main highlight of one of the items that I'd like to discuss is on page 93, and it's the Ecolab machine, or Ecolab cleaning caddy, QC. What we've done is we've partnered with Ecolab, and we've purchased 5 of these machines you see on the left-hand side, and they are going to be refunded 75% of the purchase price by FEMA, and possibly 25% of the purchase price will be refunded by the Governor's Emergency Fund after we make application for it. But what they do is they're touch-free cleaning machines, and we're primarily using them in the restrooms. They use an EPA-registered heavy-duty acid bathroom cleaner that has a 2-minute contact time. So what that means is that it's EPA-registered, and it has proven to go ahead and kill the COVID-19 virus within 2 minutes of contact. And you can see in the picture that's Dolores, our supervisor, trying it out for the first time. We've received training from Ecolab. They came here in person. They showed us how to set the machines up. They showed us how to use them. And they've told us what protective equipment we need to use the machines. And on board, they have a 90 PSI spray pressure washer. They have onboard battery and a wet vac system. So you spray this hospital disinfectant that's EPA approved to kill COVID-19, and you rinse it down with water, which is self-contained in that caddy. And then you can vacuum it up off the floor with the shop vac that's contained, and then dump the shop back into a floor drain or dispose of it elsewhere. So in closing, the closed bathrooms that we have right now, we've disinfected all of them and we've locked them. The open restrooms, we start on Monday and we start disinfecting all the bathrooms, and we get through almost all of them on Monday, and then we start again on Tuesday where we left off. So they're being disinfected almost daily, and staff is giving us good reports on this machine. They said it's very timely, but as things start to open back up, utilizing these machines is going to be a little more widespread. We bought one for Summer Waves, so one will be stationed at Summer Waves. One is currently stationed at the campground, and they're using that on the daily basis at the campground bathrooms. And we also bought one for the convention center, and we're going to go ahead and train the convention center staff on how to use it before they reopen, and they'll be able to use that in the convention center. And we'll have 2 other ones for roads and grounds to use around the island. And I envision us having a task force, strike force type situation where we'll have a crew of 2 that'll do nothing except go around and disinfect bathrooms when we get to full bathroom occupancy. So that's an update on the public-facing aspects of what we're trying to do to keep our employees and our visitors to Jekyll Island safe. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item, of course, is dealing with employees, and without our employees, none of these numbers or any of these activities are possible. And so Jenna is going to update the board at this point on exactly what our response has been to the COVID-19. Jenna?
Thank you. So on slide 95, you'll kind of see the staffing summary by week, and the week dates actually follow our pay period weeks. And so, unfortunately, we did have to, in response of that economic impact of COVID-19, make that difficult decision to implement a furlough through reduction in hours and or no hours for certain positions. Now, you'll see at the very beginning, starting with the week of March 27th through April 2nd, we did not have a official furlough at that point. However, we did see 61 or 46% of our part-time employees received reduced hours, or because of that reduction of hours, were not scheduled. Some were not scheduled at all. During that same period of time, we also were hearing from employees, 27 or 20% of our part-time folks had indicated that they were nervous and they were not going to be available for work for various reasons, some related to health conditions. At that time, at that week, there were 0 full-time employees that had received a reduced or no hours of work. And so as you can see, as the weeks kind of progressed, those numbers climbed. April 3rd was when we had, if there's an official starting point of a furlough, it began then. And it's been essentially rolling. We were taking a look at particular positions as we went along, where those positions were located and whether or not they were essential functions to the business operation. So in that second week, or from 4/3 to 4/9, we saw the part-time number jump up from 410 to 416. This is where, through continuous monitoring and evaluation, the part-time staff started to become affected by this as well. And then the current week that we're in right now, we have 97 or 73% of our part-time employees at that reduction or essentially no hours of work being offered to them, and 27 or 16% of our full-time employees receiving either reduced work or no work hours at all. And those will continue until we can kind of measure where we are and when we need to bring which positions back. So we'll certainly continue to monitor that and be very strategic as to how and when we're bringing people back. And it's worth noting that per the requirements of the Department of Labor, when we furlough employees, we are required to file for unemployment benefits on their behalf, which we have been doing and will continue to do so. And those are for employees who are available for work, but we are not providing them for any work hours. The 27% of employees that are part-time that are remaining are primarily in our fire department and conservation, so they're maintaining those essential operations in those areas. And then I know that telework has been a big solution for for the situation, and we do have 17% of our full-time positions are actually able to do either full telework or partial telework, depending on their responsibilities. So they may be, for the partial folks, they might be in the office, 1 day or 2 days, and then they're teleworking the rest of the time, to go ahead and work from home to continue their responsibilities and support the organization through those efforts. So as Marjorie mentioned, with a lag of seeing, some of the financial impact to these, it does take a little bit of time to see the reduction in those in the payroll, and so I think it was the payroll that processed and was paid on April 17th, where we just started to see that first reduction of actual payroll expense. And that will continue on into May, and until we start to, bring kind of people back, and that's going to be through phases. So that's kind of where we are with our staffing summary, and of course we'll continue to monitor and make adjustments as needed.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Jen.
Mr. Chairman, that actually is the completion of our update and response, which is item D on your agenda. In the interest of time, if we could just see if any of the board members have any questions or comments on that section by just identifying yourself, because then we will go into the consideration of the actual recommendation as far as lease relief, which will, of course, require a roll call.
Great, thank you. I will simply say I remain amazed and grateful for this staff. Just absolutely remarkable, because I've obviously been watching other organizations, Delta Airlines particularly, and I'm just so proud of the authority again. And thank you all for what you're doing. Let's see. We next have the
is there,
item.
Sir, if you don't mind me interrupting, is there
no,
any
go ahead.
questions from the board? Hearing none, we'll move to appendix page 161. That's page 161 in the packet at the very end. It was an appendix.
And is that section E?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I will turn to Jones to take this section as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have certainly, I feel like, painted the picture for you as far as where we are regarding the COVID-19 outbreak and how it's impacted Jekyll Island. And I wanted to, obviously our assumptions may or may not be correct as far as the future, but at this point, this is what we have to go on, and we feel confident in where we are. We realize these are very unusual and uncertain times for all of us. We have tried to be We always have tried to be a good partner with our commercial partners on the island, but it is always a balancing act because, as members of the board realize, our operating budget must be raised by the authority in order to keep our services, the needed services, moving forward. We are not funded by the state as far as our operating budget is concerned. And with that said, we provided you in the addendum that has been made available to the public, we provided you with a section that looks at our budgeted revenues and then looks at specifically our leases, our commercial leases. If you look at the first page of that addendum, it's entitled the FY 2020 Budgeted Revenue, and it's a pie chart that Marjorie has prepared for us, and it's one that you're used to seeing because we show this to you pretty frequently. But this one is updated to show that if our budget were to remain intact, that about 47% of our amenities, of our budget would be, our operating budget would be generated by our amenities for this budget year. And that's shown in the light blue. And then if you look at the red, about 15% of our budget would be coming to the authority through our commercial leases. That varies a little bit, but usually it's our number two next to our amenities. This year it looks like it might, if our budget were to be made, it would be number two with our parking. But obviously parking, we've already shown you that that's taking a dive as a result of COVID-19. But that gives you a feeling of where our revenues come from for the year and how important our commercial leases are to us for the JIA budget. There was a sheet included in your addendum which was entitled Lease Inventory Stat Sheet, and Maria Humphrey, she put this information together. Basically, that there are 85 executed business leases at the present time on Jekyll Island, and that's important information for you to know because there are basically 47 leases, which are hotels, retail space in the Beach Village, and the Pier Road Shops. And that all of the information that we're about to present to you in this section is based on businesses that were open as of March the 1st of 2020. There are 38 of our 47 leases that require security deposits or either irrevocable letters of credit, or either there are other capital improvement accounts that are required. Some require both a security deposit and a capital improvement account. So our leases have various additional requirements other than straightforward lease payments to the authority. So when we began to look at what we may be able to do to show goodwill and good faith to our commercial tenants, we looked at all of that. We also looked at those tenants who had contacted us, and I sent you an email regarding that. We had received contact from some of our tenants specifically. Those were Circle K, the Henshaw Group, which is doing business as Fuse on the island, WePub, George Stewart doing business as Tortugas, the Club Hotel, the Days Inn, the Westin had made an inquiry, and the Hampton Inn. Some of these inquiries were made very early once the original executive orders were issued, and they were more inquisitive as far as what would the authority be looking at doing. Board members know that we contacted you and we extended the grace period for payment, which usually is 10 days following the due date of a payment. We were able to administratively extend that for an additional 10 days, so there was a 20-day extension there. But that was all we could do administratively without the board taking action to take other avenues of consideration for any kind of relief. It is interesting that when you look at the inquiries that we received, most of the inquiries were saying, is there a possibility for a deferment? And I think that's interesting. I provided board members over the weekend with a letter we received from Circle K, where Circle K did ask for an actual rent reduction of 50% for 3 months. Now, that was the only one in writing that requested a reduction. We did hear from Days Inn looking at a deferment, and also the Henshaw Group indicated that deferments were being granted by some of their other property, by some of their other landlords with properties that they own. So we tried to give you kind of a additional information as far as across the board what was being asked for. When we looked at the situation then, we looked at the hotel, the retail, and the restaurant leases as of March 1st, and we are making a recommendation that is included in the addendum to your packet. That would be an automatic deferment of 2 months base rent, which would be May and June of 2020, with no lease default due to this automatic deferment, and that there would be a waiver of late charges on the rent for that deferred period of May and June 2020, with no lease default due to the automatic waiver. We also then outlined for you flexibility to use existing letters of credit, cash deposit requirements, or capital expenditure account requirements for other uses. And we felt like that would be a good faith effort for us to allow those various accounts to be used other than just for capital improvements. We also would recommend no additional capital expenditure account deposits would be required for the remainder of calendar year 2020, and that contributions for capital expenditure accounts for the last quarter of 2019 and the first quarter of 2020 would be allowed and authorized for uses as outlined in the sheet that was provided. We also looked at the Beach Village, and since there were no special events taking place at the Beach Village, we were recommending to you the availability of the special event fee to be used for payments for JIA invoices other than the special event fee, and that the special event fee would be deferred and not for 2021 and not due until October of 2020 to be invoiced in 2020. Mr. Chairman, these are our recommendations. Marjorie has been intimately involved in this, as well as other senior staff members, including our general counsel, and we feel like that these are recommendations that should be helpful to our businesses on the island, and providing relief, and at the same time should also be items that would not severely impact the JIA operational budget at this point.
Thank you, Jones. Are there any other staff comments? If not, I'm going to move to board comments. Okay. Michelle, we will do it by roll call.
Yes, sir. Mr. Wilkinson?
I just want to again thank the staff, and I thank
Chairman,
everyone who's.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
This is Melissa Cruthers. In the interest of time, may I make a suggestion that we do discussion after a motion is made, since we're going to have a discussion again after a motion is made?
I think that's a great idea, Counselor, even though it's, I know you bill in 6-minute increments, but I agree with you.
Sure.
So I will move. So I would, the recommendation is that I go ahead and ask for a motion to accept the recommended relief for Jekyll Island Authority lessees as found in the board packet and is recommended by staff. So I would entertain that motion.
Chairman, this is
I second the motion.
I so move.
Thank
Been
you, Mr.
moved.
Cruz.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I second.
All righty. And
Mr.
then
Chairman,
now we go.
seconded it, please.
Who did the second?
This is Tripp. I did the second.
Okay, thanks, Tripp. Okay, so we're now ready to move into discussion.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Wilkinson?
yep.
You already used your
just
comment?
again, I just simply would remind everyone, as we were taught at the Coca-Cola Company, the street runs both ways, and we have to take care of all people involved, and we have to maintain our sworn duty to Jekyll Island.
Thank you. Mr. Kruger?
I certainly second Chairman Wilkinson's comments, and I'd like to point out that while hopefully many of our private partners have applied for federal relief, there is no relief avenue for Jekyll Island Authority. But, we've got to make it or break it on our budget here, and this appears to me to be a very fair, comprehensive way of helping our private partners through this process.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Gross?
I am good. I'm good.
Thank you. Mr. Chip Tollison?
I am good. Just want to thank Jones and staff for continuing to do a great job under these trying times. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Birch Meeks?
I want to echo the other members and thank Jones and staff. I think these are fair. These are trying, challenging, and unprecedented times.
Thank you. Dr. Buster Evans?
In agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Williams?
I'm good.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn Willard?
Yes, I agree with the chairman. It goes both ways. Just a quick comment. One of my landlords is Tanger Outlets, and that's what they basically deferred 2 months' rent, and we'll have to catch up in January of 2021. So I'm hearing and seeing different things out there. So I'm really glad the staff has put this together, and we definitely have to work with our tenants, and it goes both ways.
Thank you. Mr. Dale Atkins?
I'm good.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Please vote yea or nay. Mr. Joe Wilkinson?
Yay.
Thank you. Mr. Bob Kruger?
Yay.
Thank you. Mr. Bill Gross?
Yay.
Mr. Tripp Tollison?
Yay.
Ms. Joy Birch Meeks?
Yay.
Thank you. Dr. Buster Evans?
Yay.
Thank you. Commissioner Mark Williams?
Yay.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn Willard?
Yay.
Thank you. Mr. Dale Atkins?
Yay.
Thank you. This motion passes unanimously. The next item of business will be on page 97 of your packet.
Mr. Chairman, as I introduce Troy Vinson to you for the presentation, I would just like to note to you that this is a presentation of the Jekyll Island Authority Golf Master Plan. It is not an item for vote today, and there is not a public work session on this particular update schedule because of the COVID-19 situation. We will be scheduling, however, a public session at a later date. With that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to turn it over to Troy Vinson for the presentation.
Absolutely. Troy?
Thank you, Jones, and on behalf of our team, we appreciate the opportunity to provide you with an update on the Jekyll Island Authority Golf Master Plan. And first and foremost, I'd like to say I hope everybody's family's safe and everybody's practicing safe distances because we don't want to see anything happen to anyone. So I'm going to do this a little bit differently. Typically, I don't read slide by slide, but I feel like that there's some very pertinent information that we do need to go through. So I am going to start, which would be on page 98 of your packet. And that is Jekyll Island Faqs. At the top of the page, you'll see that there's a chart that has been put together in regards to how many rounds the golf course has done in the past and where they are currently. From the NGF report, the National Golf Foundation report that was done in 2016, 2017, they average your lowest end of a golf course in the number of rounds per 18 holes is 31,527. That is basically the bottom of the chart. So when you figure 63 holes, then you should be averaging, Jekyll Island Golf Course should be averaging 344 rounds per year. That would be on the very low end, the bottom end of the spectrum. And when you look at the next phase, it says Jekyll Island total rounds. Those are the rounds that Jekyll Island has been doing since 2014. Okay, so you see definitely a decline from 2014 to 2017, a slight uptick in 18, and we do see an increased number of rounds in 2019. So below in red, you will see the difference is that's the amount of additional rounds that would have to be played in order to meet that 110,344 number. So that just kind of lets you know where you stand comparatively to other facilities. Now, what we have seen is membership rounds have increased and currently account for the last 2 years for about a third of the total rounds. So the members are averaging about 21,500 rounds a year over the last 2 years, which is good. In 2016, the National Golf Foundation was retained to evaluate the operations and economic performance of Jekyll Island Golf Club. A key finding was that Jekyll Island Golf Club is operating below industry standards in both budget and available maintenance personnel per 18 holes. Now, I know that there has been some adjustments to the budget to try and bring it a little bit more in line of where they should be. I think that Aaron continues to struggle in regards to having the appropriate number of people to maintain 63 holes. So, and I will preface that by saying that Aaron has done a wonderful job with what he has to work with. So this is by no means any indication to his performance, because I think he's doing a great job. The NGF report consistently compares, when you read the report, either keeping 63 holes or reducing to 45. And this is a quote. Given this and the change in demand, the NGF sees a 45-hole golf facility as a much better option for Jekyll Island Golf Club. Now, I have spoken to Richard Singer, the Director of Consulting Services for NGF, who prepared this report. In a number of instances, he has repeated that. So all data points to a 45-hole facility being optimal. We agree with the NGF report, and we both concur that Great Dunes, Oleander, and Indian Mound have surpassed their life expectancy and are all in need of major upgrades. So we go to B99 in your packet. The Golf Master Plan process is designed to determine what options exist and recommend the best direction for the future of golf at Jekyll Island. Current course design does not align with Jekyll Island Authority's missions as stewards of the island. Incorporating things such as turf reduction, minimizing aquifer withdrawal for irrigation, and introducing native grasses are more environmentally sound practices. That would be more in a line of what Jekyll Island stands for in their mission. And currently, we don't see that. The plan allows for a wider range of outdoor recreation and educational opportunities, and I'm referring to the master plan, which you will see later. Broader appeal to the general public while enhancing wildlife habitat. Conservation areas could accommodate conversion from golf to maritime grasslands, forest, pine savanna, freshwater wetlands, and areas that can accommodate expansion of saltwater high marsh. We have reached out to the Georgia Conservancy, the Nature Conservancy, the bird conservation interests to discuss the best course of action, because by almost default, when we became involved with this golf course master plan, you also have to look at what happens to the property if golf is eliminated. So it's kind of opened another door for us. So we go to slide 100 in your packet. And the first is just a graph. You see that the Oleander Golf Course takes up the most amount of acreage. While considering the overall site, traffic patterns, and access points, as well as current issues with Oleander, eliminating the back nine and repurposing this portion of the site is practical. There is an opportunity to reallocate golf acreages to conservation land rather than alternative development. Our current plan is a 2.5 to 1 ratio. For every acre that we have proposed as the possible development opportunity, we're giving 2.5 acres back for conservation. Some of the key things are bridging the wildlife corridor gap between Shell Road and Captain Wiley Road, which will allow a continuous wildlife passage without interruption for natural habitat on the island. Opportunity is created for salt marsh expansion to accommodate sea level rise along the tidal lake on the Oleander Golf Course. And this is an area that obviously the back nine, particularly holes 11 through 15, are impacted by what we're seeing in regards to sea level rise. So the decision whether to keep 63 holes or to modify the golf course with hole reduction, I cannot stress enough the importance of a financial plan in order to determine what type of income can be generated to support the project costs. Spending $1.4 to $1.7 million on basic improvements, which was noted in the NGF report, does not address the overall issues that are taking place and will continue to take place. For example, the $32,000 that was spent on the green on hole number 2 at Indian Mound, which did not solve the issue. I've spoken with Aaron, and they continue to have issues with that. So improving the overall golf courses will inspire a renewed marketing campaign. Highlighting new offerings will be more successful than promoting what currently exists. An aggressive and targeted campaign to build excitement and awareness will begin once enhancements are underway. Development will not only contribute a portion of the overall cost. The golf course master plan will require development, loans, grants, and partnerships in order for us to see this to be successful. The complexity of securing sources of funding, it is not possible to determine the exact timeline of this. So we will move to 103 in your packet, and that's just a review of the first concept A, concept B, and the following slide would be C and D. Those were the first 4 concepts that we presented during our last meeting. So as part of the process, after those 4 concepts were presented, and we were given the freedom by Jekyll Island Authority to do what we felt would work best without, I'll say, them dictating or steering us in any direction. So those were our ideas that we came up with. So after the presentation the last time that we had met, we reviewed public responses, which to date, I believe there have been 114 public comments, and those date back to when we were first brought into the project. So the comments are very varying. Some of the comments are in regards to what we had proposed in the RFP, and not particularly these 4 concepts. And really, they're kind of across the board. Some have to do with golf. Some don't have to do with golf. Some have to do with other things that the public would like to see introduced. So I won't go through the specific comments. They're on the right side of this. But basically, one of the biggest things we're hearing is keep golf affordable. I think the fear is that if improvements are made, the membership rates are going to go up, the dues are going to go up, the average number of rounds cost will go up. There were a lot of comments. People don't want to see anything change whatsoever. There were also comments that say that we want to see change. We want to see something happen. We want to see a better quality of golf than what's currently offered. There were comments about marketing the golf course, but it's difficult to market a golf course that has as much age as the current golf courses do. I think everybody was pretty much in agreement with limited development or no development, as well as additional recreational opportunities. Obviously, concern about securing funding for the project, and a comment about explore the opportunity to relocate the fire station, which would we looked at, and it would have made sense if you eliminate the back 9 of the Oleander Golf Course. So after the first 4 concepts were presented, we listened to the public. We sat down with the Jekyll Island Authority, and we basically reassessed everything. And again, I think I'll go through these rather quickly, but the National Golf Foundation, based on the report, Jekyll Island Authority, and ourselves, these were some of our priorities, and it determined what is the correct number of holes for Jekyll Island based on today. Reach financial sustainability. achieve maintenance sustainability, renew and improve the golf experience to attract a broader audience, incorporate successful trends that are currently influencing the golf industry, and there are a number of those. Build no housing on the golf course. We agree. It's great to have a core golf feeling when you play at Jekyll Island. Maintain limited development. Any development would have to be low density. Create partnerships. Maximize golf opportunities. Wildlife corridors. Utilize land effectively for additional Jekyll Island Authority amenities and attraction. Grow the destination offerings. Potential for wetland restoration. Diversify outdoor recreation and educational opportunities. Introduction of additional green spaces. Limited retail. Overall cost estimates. And all the master plan components would be addressed in varied ways such as RFPs, budget, state funding, and partnerships. So we assessed everything, came back, and on 108 of your package, you will see the revised plan. And we're going to break this plan down in regards to golf, development, and conservation. So if you look at page 109, these are the opportunities the current plan, which would be 108, presents. A boutique-style lodge and villas, which would be low density. Existing amphitheater. If you recall in the overall Jekyll Island master plan, there has been conversation that you want to restore at some point the amphitheater. We've created a 100-foot buffer along the bird rookery. We are proposing an assisted living facility, which would be low density, a wildlife corridor, community pavilion. We would combine Great Dunes and Oleander and eliminate the back nine of Oleander. Possible improvements of Pine Lakes. Indian Mountain will be adjusted to potentially just a 9-hole golf course. We would introduce a new component, which would be a 9-hole par 3 course. Create a new practice area and golf instruction center. And we would enhance Captain Wiley Road. We would also expand the trail system, salt marsh conservation expansion, natural grasslands establishment, open parkland passive recreation areas, croquet courts, repurpose the existing clubhouse. So we would leave the pro shop where it is, and then the bottom half of the clubhouse would be converted, I say converted, to cart storage, although that's what it was originally designed and built for, was golf cart storage in the bottom of the building, and then potentially a fitness area in the second floor of the existing clubhouse. So we go to page 111, and that's the master plan acreage comparison. And again, this is a chart which shows the 5 concepts, how much property they would take as far as golf and supporting facilities. And I would just want to point out concept A and concept C, which have the lowest amount of acreage for golf course and support facilities, but both of those concepts are 45 holes. And our master plan is basically including 54 holes, which includes the 9-hole par 3 golf course. I think other things that are important, development opportunity. Our current master plan is roughly 31.3 acres would be used for development. But what we're really proud of is the conservation and recreation area. 81.7 acres would be put back into conservation and recreation that you currently do not have. So that would be 81.7 additional acres that would go into conservation. So we want to break these down. On 112 of your packet is the golf courses. So basically this just highlights areas that are in green and light yellow. 54 holes of golf. You would have two 18-hole full-size golf courses. That would be Pine Lakes and the combination of the front nine of Oleander and the Dunes course would create one 18-hole golf course. One 9-hole regulation golf course, which would be Indian Mound. We would keep the same corridors, but we would obviously redesign and update the golf course. One 9-hole par 3 course, a new practice area, which would include larger tee area, chipping area, putting course, and a golf instruction center. So again, if you go back, NGF had basically recommended 45 holes. This is 54. The beauty of this is we're offering more options. We're offering just a 9-hole golf course, which could be a different price point. We're offering a 9-hole par 3 course. Again, these are big trends that we're seeing in the industry that have been very, very successful. Particularly, I think, with Jekyll Island, with the number of children that come there for the summer, with your age groups and demographics, some people cannot play 18 holes. So you're giving them an option to go back out and enjoy the game they love, as well as to learn golf. So there's a lot of advantages to this, as well as a better practice area. And we've mentioned before that your current practice area faces almost due west. So in the afternoon, it's very difficult to use because the sun is in your eyes. So this practice area is reoriented. So we go to page 113. These are your new conservation areas. So conservation has been increased by 81.7 acres by eliminating portions of the golf development. And there are so many possibilities that Ben and I and Jones and the Jekyll Island Authority have discussed. So the conservation areas enhance linkages to the maritime forest north of Captain Wiley Road and south of Shell Road by creating a north-south wildlife corridor. And that is the area that you can see, it's red, it has two red arrows. That's the wildlife corridor. Restore freshwater wetlands on the north end of Indian Mound. That would be the upper right of the page in light blue. Opportunity created for salt marsh expansion to accommodate sea level rise. Again, that would be along the existing lake, as well as you'll see a small area that's in purple, almost in the middle of the page on the bottom, which that would be a saltwater conservation area. Opportunity, provide a 100-foot buffer along the wading bird rookery and enhance habitat through expansion of pond to create rookery islands. We've actually created 2 rookery islands in the area, which would be just below where the existing practice area is, and that lake has been expanded somewhat. And then there would be a 100-foot buffer that runs all the way around the northeast part of that rookery. Diversify habitat with managed maritime grasslands and establish new environmental recreation areas. So this is the page probably everybody is wanted to see the most, and that's 114, and that's development areas. And we were very strategic at how we located these and what they would actually entail. So there are 5 development areas that total 31.3 acres in all. and are located within the development envelope of the 6535 plan. Located along Stable Road and adjacent to the historic district, so it's just across from the historic district, kind of the bottom left of your page. There's a big area that's in purple, and you'll see some red buildings. This tract is 12.3 acres, and it would be a great site for a proposed low density. And when we say low density, we're saying 40 to 50 room max assisted and independent living facility. The current practice area is the site of the second tract, which is a 9-acre parcel and could accommodate a proposed low density, again, 50 rooms max, boutique style golf lodge villa for golfers, tennis, and other tournament groups. Again, we had mentioned about the buffer along the Rookery. We also have a small 5-acre parcel located along the north side of the current Indian Mound course, which is the upper right area. It's kind of an aqua blue. That could include a community pavilion and a nature-oriented amenity. And the last parcel is a 5-acre parcel located along Shell Road, so that would be on the very bottom of your page, light purple, which is under study, but we have discussed about the possibility of that being a low-density retail, which may include a nature-oriented shop or outlet. So we move to page 115 in your packet. So what's the advantage of this master plan? Well, the advantage is, number one, we can create an exciting classic golf course by incorporating Oleander and the dunes into one 18-hole golf course, which also allows you to eliminate, at a cost savings, the starter area that currently is having to be utilized for the dunes course. Improved Pine Lakes golf course. Indian Mound becomes a 9-hole golf course pending initial phase 1. Create a new par 3 course. Again, increase conservation area. Repurposing the existing clubhouse so we don't incur the expense of building a new clubhouse. And that would incorporate the pro shop, cart storage, and fitness center. Again, new practice facilities, including a golf instruction center, a boutique golf lodge, which would also incorporate the grill room, so you would not have to operate your own grill anymore. Construct a low-density assisted living facility for those that enjoy Jekyll Island but need a little bit more help. So with that, the phasing at this point, and it is still kind of early, but we all feel the combination of the Dunes course and the Oleander golf course to create one new 18 golf course, a whole golf course, operated from the centralized current pro shop would make the most sense. At the same time, you construct a new practice area. Pine Lakes, Indian Mound, and the back 9 portion of the Oleander would remain open as long as possible, as well as the current practice area. And then phase 2 and 3 would have to be determined based on basically the timing and the results of phase 1. So when you look at slides 117, there's a reason we're kind of showing a couple different views of how we envision the golf course, and slide 117 would be what we see Oleander Great Dunes Golf Course look like. And it goes back to the Walter Travis design. Back then, there were not enormous amounts of turf. It was very native. And golfers are flocking to areas with this type of golf course. If you look at slide 118, I think it's important to depict that you can combine the old front 9 of the Oleander golf course, which has trees. It's tree lined. But you can create this look so there's continuity between what currently exists tree-lined versus open area, and you still have that same feel, that same concept of the golf course. So we felt that that was important to be able to point out. The Indian Mountain Golf Course really focuses on creating more native areas. And again, these are, I think, what we feel Jekyll Island stands for. Instead of irrigating from tree line to tree line or maintaining turf from tree line to tree line, there are so many areas when you figure out the cost to maintain the turf, take care of the turf, fertilize the turf, et cetera, there are so many areas that we feel like can be taken back into more of a native grass. So what that does is it frames your golf hole better. It helps reduce your maintenance costs, helps reduce the amount of water that you're using, fertilizers, et cetera, man hours. So, excuse me, that is the idea of the style for the 9-hole Indian Mountain Golf Course. Slide 120 is the par 3 course. Very unique concept, a 9-hole par 3 course, but it also can double as a practice area. We have an area where we can actually build a tee, and you would actually utilize 4 of the par 3 holes for your target green. So in the event you have a tournament play going on, you can separate the tournament players from the membership and allow for them to have their own space to be able to practice, warm up, et cetera. And what we're proposing is basically on the par 3 courses, there would be no formal tees. There would be a number of areas that would have flat plateaus, if you will. So that course could evolve and change and play different every day. We would also suggest maybe one cut. It would all be one fairway cut. There would not be any rough. So we would limit the amount of turf out there, but obviously make it very playable for all ages. So that's a great concept, and I think Jekyll Island would benefit a great deal from it. If you go to slide 121, Pine Lakes, again, these are just conceptuals, but it's a more formalized native, introducing plants indigenous to the area to set up the golf holes, and again, focus being on turf reduction. And for those of you that are familiar with the golf course, I mean, good examples are when you go to a tee, you're seeing a large area of turf all around the tee. To the left of the tee or to the right of the tee, or in some cases in between the tees. That's all area that has to be maintained, has to be watered, has to be taken care of, mowed, et cetera. Nobody hits a golf ball right there. So those areas could be taken back to more of a native look. And again, it helps you with your costs, overall look, and I think it's more conducive of what Jekyll Island stands for. So we're going to kind of skip ahead to 124 in your packet. And again, these are just examples. If we repurpose the existing clubhouse, you know, we're utilizing indoor-outdoor space without constructing a new building. We're reestablishing the first floor for golf cart storage. Pro shop can remain where it is. It's a nice pro shop. There's no reason to move it if we don't have to move it. And then configure the second floor into a fitness center, which could actually lead into a potential lease opportunity. We did have a number of comments from the public about being interested in having some type of fitness center. Enhance Captain Wiley Road. You know, right now, and we understand it's very low key the way Jekyll Island is, but for people that have not been to Jekyll Island and it being open for the public, there's no sense of arrival when you get there. I don't know if I'm at the clubhouse or if I'm not at the clubhouse. So really it would be just simple enhancement like meeting planters in the road, just to kind of break it up, and then to be able to identify more clearly cart crossings, which can be done with either pavers, but right now it's just the same as the road, and if you're not paying attention, you know, carts are coming across the road. So we go to 126, Golf Lodge and Villas. Again, it would be commercially developed golf lodge, and it would go through an RFP process. It would be located at the practice area. It would actually have to follow Jekyll Island guidelines in regards to look and feel. It would also contain a restaurant and grill. And then there would be a small cluster of low-density villas which would be located possibly on the back side to accommodate golfers, tennis, and other tournament groups. And so the bottom two pictures are examples of what possibly those villas in regards to size could look like. So this is something that I think is actually quite exciting, and that's the assisted and independent living facility. So it would be located on the proposed development parcel off Stable Road, be a low density. It's conveniently located adjacent to the historic district. So there would be a main building and then a cluster of 5 to 6 independent villas. And again, it would be low density. I can't stress that enough. But I think location-wise, that's a great location. And you know, as people do get older and people do need help, you know, they need other alternatives. And we think that that's a great alternative. So we go to 128, and that's our public green space. Again, 81 acres that we're giving back basically to Jekyll Island. Followed by 129, which are nature amenities. You know, the 5-acre area, the northern part of the site could potentially have a community pavilion, bird watching stations, eco lodges, or nature conservation educational center. So where do we go from there? Moving forward, additional planning and design will be required at a more detailed level, including archeological evaluations. We have looked at some archeological evaluations. I don't see anything right now that raises a red flag, but we would have to determine that by some additional studies. And I caution everybody, you know, this is a master plan. This is like looking at the area at 10,000 feet. So there would have to be much more detail done. Determine the phasing. Map elements to be included in each phase of the project and evaluate what effect they will have on Jekyll Island. Funding. Determine what options are available to fund the project and when they would become available. Conservation and planning priorities. Explore partnerships. If adopted, a number of elements will require partners or RFPs issued to determine what interest partnerships could be created. And then time frame, timing of all the components, phases, and their duration. So we did do some preliminary studies in regards to costs. And again, there's still a lot of questions that have to be answered at this level. But if you go back and look at our initial assessment, NGS initial assessment, you're at the point where you're really you're not going to be able to Band-Aid very much longer your golf courses. And so either way, you're talking about the possibility of even if you left the golf courses where they were at to take care of all of the items that have surpassed their longevity, you're going to spend a substantial amount of money. We feel, based on our preliminary costs so far, that you would actually be saving money by following through with the master plan in regards to golf courses, because you're actually eliminating golf holes. So there is a substantial savings there. So that is where we are at today, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Chairman, I might add that this report, this presentation that Troy's just made, will be the recommendations in it will be posted on our website for public comment through May 7th. And then based on the COVID-19 situation, we will be looking, as I mentioned earlier, to schedule a public session sometime in the future.
Great. Thank you, John. Troy, thank you so very, very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Very welcome.
Michelle, do we have board comments? Has anyone asked to speak? And then have we received email comments yet?
We have received public comments. Just to clarify, are there any board comments on Mr. Vincent's presentation today? Hearing once, hearing twice. Now I will go into the public comments. We have received a number of public comments today from the public by email. Just as a reminder, I'm going to read them at 3 minutes apiece. I'm going to read them in the order they have been received. The first is from Robert Bird. He writes today, good morning. This comment is from Robert Bird. I'm a Jekyll homeowner, resident, and golfer. The golf master plan presented today isn't a golf course plan. It's a development plan to take the land from golf courses. As presented, I believe it would be both a great mistake and a lost opportunity for the JIA. The segment of the golf industry that has grown the strongest in the recent years is premium quality public play. Several of the top destination courses in America, such as Torrey Pines and Bethpage Black, are actually municipal or state park courses. The irony here is that the authority is sitting on 63 scenic holes of island golf, just ready for some TLC. The plan presented today concedes that Jekyll Golf has been in real need of maintenance and marketing. So, of course, rounds played are dropping, playing conditions are getting worse, and promotion is non-existent. Yet instead of taking steps to improve and market the courses as a great golf resort, we plan to bulldoze existing course land for hotel rooms and, oddly, a nursing home. There are several flaws in this plan. A pitch and putt would not make world-class golf resort. Reducing the resort to 218 hampers the ability to attract tournaments and rotate for maintenance. Great Dunes is already getting bolted into mismatched 9. While Indian Mound turns into another 9, this makes little sense. There's one more problem. Today's meeting is taking place virtually because of the pandemic that has plunged our nation into a recession. Instead of sinking untold millions into construction projects that this state park does not want to or need, wouldn't this be a good time to try investing in what you have? Try to make our courses what they could be. Fix the courses, invest in real marketing, at least try it for a couple of years before you destroy what was once and could be again one of the South's top golf destinations. Next comment is from David Egan, a comment for the committee as a whole. To the JIA board and executive staff, these comments are submitted to you to be entered into the public record at the April 21st JIA board meeting on behalf of thousands of members of the Initiative to Protect Jekyll Island regarding the Vincent Golf Course Master Plan proposal. We look forward to the opportunity to comment further when JIA holds their public meeting and comment period on this project, which has been potential to fundamentally change the landscape of Jekyll Island. Hopefully, the interests and concerns of the citizens of Georgia who use and value Jekyll will be carefully considered by the JIA. Page 18 of the Vincent proposal begins with 5 development areas that total 31.3 acres, are all located within the developable area of the 65 of 35 plan. Since the 65-35 concept was eliminated with the 2014 master plan revision, and the JIA went to a 6 acreage formula, it is inaccurate and confusing to refer to the 65-35 plan. If JIA feels the 65-35 reference could be helpful for those who might not be aware of the revision, the JIA Vincent should provide a footnote explaining the 2014 revision and how it relates to the 65-35 concept. Page 34 states, additional planning and design will be required at a more detailed level, including archaeological evaluations. It would seem logical that the JIA should already have a detailed inventory of areas that could be home to significant archaeological artifacts. This inventory should be consulted now to determine if the sites being proposed for development mentioned in the Vincent proposal are appropriate for development. Page 18 calls for additional retail shops, but this would likely increase competition for the number of shops, resulting in decreased profitability for the existing shops. Thank you, David and Mindy Egan, co-directors of the Initiative to Protect Jekyll Island. The next comment is from, it's a duplicate of the last comment. The next comment is from Catherine Ridley. Hello, please accept these comments below for consideration during the Committee of the Whole first reading. Ordinance 2020-2, proposed revisions to the Jekyll Island Beach Lighting Ordinance. Thank you, Catherine Ridley, VP Education and Communications, SSI Sea Turtle Project Coordinator for 100 Miles. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed changes to the beach lighting ordinance. On behalf of the staff, board of directors, and members of the 100 Miles, we want to express our gratitude to both Jekyll Island Authority and the Georgia DNR Wildlife Conservation Section for the time and effort your teams have devoted to this issue. As you know from previous public comments, 100 Miles had many concerns about the proposed revisions first presented in 2019. Based on the version presented to the public on March 12th, those concerns have now largely been addressed. We appreciate that the JIA took the community's feedback to heart following your initial draft, and that you went back to work collaborating with DNR biologists. As a result, the public can have confidence that their voices were heard, and Jekyll will have ordinance that protects the nesting sea turtle and their hatchlings. Thank you. Moving forward, for any future revisions to this ordinance or similar projects, we expect that this collaborative process with DNR biologists will be built in from the very beginning, and we hope that the same will be true for community partners, residents, and stakeholders. This dialogue over the years has demonstrated the overwhelming value to our coast for the sea turtles. If we expect our citizens to be active partners in conservation efforts and make responsible decisions to protect our wildlife, then we must give them the tools to do so, including transparency and the opportunity to participate early and often. In terms of the proposed revisions, we are pleased to see the internal lights are now specifically referred to, as the penalty options for violators are more clearly identified. In order to improve compliance, it is essential that this language is spelled out so that all stakeholders, including JIS staff, DNR biologists, hotels, and business managers, concerned citizens, and advocacy organizations interpret the ordinance the same way and understand what is expected. We expect that now that you have clearer language and multiple enforcement options you felt were missing from the existing ordinance, you will now be able to move more effectively to enforce it and immediately address any violations that might occur. Despite a few successful nesting seasons in recent years, loggerhead sea turtles remain a threatened species. The recovery requires all the work to cooperatively reduce serious problems of light pollution along our nesting beaches. Again, thank you for your hard work and effort getting this right. We supported this revised draft and look forward to working with you towards implementation and successful 2020 sea turtle season. Right at 3 minutes. The next comment is from Diane Shearer. Jekyll needs more passive recreation, so I salute plans to expand trails and creating larger rookery in the amphitheater area. I do question the wisdom of 50 rental units backing up to the rookery. Are there more rental units really needed? If they are built, it is certain that they will generate more noise than the current golf practice area. Would a 100-foot buffer really be enough? Salt marsh expansion and other changes that would help protect the island during storms and take into account other sea level rise should definitely be part of any final plan. Diane Shearer, Tucker, Georgia. The next comment is from Alicia M. Keys, public comment. Please enter these comments into the public record on behalf of the members of 100 Miles. 100 Miles is an advocacy organization devoted to the protection of Georgia's 100-mile coast. Many of our members reside on Jekyll Island, and most have a deep appreciation of this special state park. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed Golf Master Plan. According to Georgia Code 12-3-231, subparagraph 4, golf courses are considered developed land on the Jekyll Island State Park, defined as land that is built upon or paved or land that has been disturbed or no longer retains original natural function. Section 8 of the same code defines undeveloped area as any area that remains free from the built environment and includes areas like the forest, where the canopy and understory remain intact, wooded areas with fire breaks, dirt roads no longer in use, dirt footpaths fewer than 6 feet wide, and freshwater wetlands. The presentation online indicates the proposed Golf Master Plan presents the opportunity to relocate golf acreage to conservation land rather than to alternate development, slide 18. 2.5 acres of conservation for each acre of alternate development would result in a net gain for conservation of the natural resources and wildlife of Jekyll. Based on the codified definition, this transaction is significant and positive recommendation. However, the plan is still a draft, and the presentation offers no assurance that the result of this change will actually be a net increase of undeveloped and unpaved land, referred as the conservation areas over time. Offer the public assurances that these positive changes will come to fruition. 100 Miles recommends the JIA permanently protect the acres developed to be converted from the golf course developed to conservation areas through one of two ways. Recommends the General Assembly amend the Georgia Code to reflect the increased undeveloped land committed to conservation, or B, establish long-term easements on the new conservation areas, permanently protect them from future changes, allowing development and increased impervious services. 2, update Jekyll's master plan and conservation plan to reflect specific actions and management practices that will be taken to achieve a net gain in conservation areas, and identify how conservation goals will be upheld through the year. 3, host public meetings and hearings to discuss the final golf master plan and any associated changes to other Jekyll Island plans. 4, lastly, please eliminate references to the 65-35 rule that once governed the development on Jekyll Island State Park. After a great deal of controversy in 2014, the Georgia General Assembly amended state code to delete the 65-35 reference in the code and establish that 1675 acres of uplands will be considered developed land on Jekyll Island. Thank you for your time, and that is the 3-minute mark. Next comment. Stephen Smith, public comment regarding the Golf Master Plan. Public comments for the April 2020 JIA board meeting. There are 3 areas of weaknesses that need to be addressed before the adoption of any Golf Master Plan. These 3 being the need for a complete business plan, much more public input, and the examination of logical alternatives. A business plan that addresses now, not later, what each component of the master plan would cost. These are difficult economic times, and it would be extremely imprudent not to know now, not later, what the total cost might be of all the choices in remarketing of the golf course facility remaking. Ultimately, the taxpayers will foot the bill for these costly changes, so they need to know from where the money will come from. This business plan should also address the maintenance costs of new facilities. It should include a marketing research plan and state clearly whether the golf facility is intended to be a moneymaker or a loss leader on the island. There has not been nearly enough opportunity for the public to adopt this golf master plan at this time. Members of the club account for 1/3 of the course income, but have barely included in the Vincent Group planning. Consider also the creation of an advisory committee composed of representatives from the golf groups, local business groups, people, and other interested island groups. This advisory committee would help greatly forming and implementing the momentous changes to the island that are suggested in the master plan. There needs to be more examination of alternatives for several facets of the Vincent Group plan. The final choices should be take it or should not be take it or leave it propositions. There are several examples. Would a par 3 course makeover of the Great Dunes 9-hole course be better than a par 3 course built on the Indian Mountain area? The Great Dunes area would be much less costly and easier to reconfigure as a par 3 course. The location of this area would also serve as a greater and more diversified clientele. Close to the beach and the mini golf area, this par 3 course would be a summer moneymaker, something that the 18-hole courses are not. Located closer on Beachview Drive and near the hotels, a par 3 course there would be visible, accessible, quick, easy golf experience year-round. It would make more sense to rebuild Oleander, making it once again a premier Southeast Georgia state golf course instead of trying to make it an awkward loop course out of the Oleander front 9 for a 9-hole course. What are the comparative costs and benefits of the two choices? The National Golf Federation study done in 2017 concluded the first main step for the Jekyll Golf Master Plan should be rebuilding Oleander. What happened to the NGF plan? Why is the change to a more costly, more expensive renovation? Is it wise in these economic times to not consider the alternatives to cost and benefit? And that's 3 minutes. Next comment. The next comment received was from J.G. Laurie.
Was there an address?
I will forward the full comments to you, sir, if you'd like.
I'd be curious because we usually read in the record the addresses, or at least, location.
I'd be happy to do that, sir. Thank you.
Oh, you sent it like that, or just put it in, make sure it's in the record.
Thank you. Thank you for creating the opportunity for the public input on the new golf master plan. Several years ago, during the Linger Longer partnership, I remember seeing some JIA workers digging on the Great Dunes course and checking for archaeological artifacts. As I recall, there was a change made in the proposed location of development because of their findings. Please do a thorough evaluation of its impact to historical and archaeological sites before proceeding with an alteration to the golf course or any further consideration. Reverend George Lurie of Rent, Georgia. Next comment is from Bev Hopkins, full-time resident. Thank you, Jones, Knoll, and JIA staff for the efforts to follow the somewhat confusing state directive. I do not envy the patrols who attempt to enforce the social distancing and beach usage requirements. I do try to get out walking or bicycling, so I soon may see many people choosing to ignore the requirements. It is sad that many people, to see many cars tags from outside Glenn County, especially the last 2 Saturdays, indicating we have many visitors who are ignoring the shelter in place. I was appalled to see the large congregation of muscle cars at the convention center on the Saturday before Easter. Bike paths have been jammed the past 2 Saturdays, leading to new safety issues of more bikes taking to the streets because of social distancing on the narrow paths, and the bridges are impossible. I watched numerous people dining at the plastic beach village tables with no cleaning of those tables. Residents as a whole recognize the importance of tourists on Jekyll. However, I feel sure the board is aware that Jekyll has 1 grocery and 1 gas station. That means our resident population is trying hard not to travel, even for grocery basics, is sharing the limited space with visitors who are ignoring the shelter in place. Jekyll has a very limited options for grocery delivery, especially fresh food items to residents. It is unreasonable to expect residents, many of them who fall into the high-risk category, to leave their homes. I am aware of 2 confirmed COVID-19 cases on Jekyll and a probable 3rd. To say residents are nervous about reopening all lodges and businesses is an understatement. Next public comment. This is from Monica Andrea. The convention center was said to have been closed. However, they're putting out an email distribution advertising their kitchen is selling meals curbside pickup, while local residents have had to be closed or offer only carryout. It's not profitable for some restaurants to stay open, nor practical for some to be open. Why is Jekyll Island Convention Center competing with Jekyll Island Authority's tenants? No address listed. Next comment. This is from Craig Patterson, the Jekyll Island Citizens Association board member. Thank you for making the meeting available to the public online. Next comment. This is from David Egan and Mindy Egan. Please add this comments to what was sent in. Together they are under the 3-minute limit. I'm listening to Mr. Vincent as he talks about old courses that have outlived their time to justify a new proposal. I kept help thinking about St. Andrews, Pebble Beach, Bethpage Black, and Augusta. They are old courses, very old. Have they outlived their time and should be changed to new and exciting marketing strategy be created for a new course in their place? Thank you, Mindy Egan. The last comment received is from David Kylar to the JIA board. Please consider these suggestions, comments, and questions regarding the Jekyll Island Authority Golf Master Plan. A written response would be appreciated. There should be a narrative description of the Golf Master Plan summary that explains the characteristics and distinctions of each design concept, not just a tabular summary. How have the golf course revenues been used previously? What explains the funding shortfalls that resulted in the decline of golfing facilities and staffing deficiencies? In the reference to page 111 of the materials posted, displaying the tabular summary of the concepts being recommended for the consideration, how is development opportunity defined? Must set parameters such as numbers of units, types of use, net units per acre, building height limits, etc. Conservation and recreation covers a wide range of land uses from passive to active. Again, must be defined with specific allocation among uses. Priority should be given to flood control, including buffers from rising sea level and storage of stormwater runoff. As a part of the latter, adopt a program for monitoring sea level rise, incorporating methods used by the Skidaway Institute of Oceanography. Another priority should be a habitat and buffers that serve threatened and endangered species. Rare and natural coastal ecosystems, such as maritime forests, should also be cultivated for visitor experience. How much demand exists for 9-hole courses? Concepts A and C provide 3 18-hole courses and 1 9-hole courses. Limit or prohibit impervious surfaces to reduce stormwater runoff. Specifically proposed means for collection, storage, release, and sampling of any stormwater generated in areas under this plan or from other off-site sources that affect these areas. If eco-friendly landscaping methods are not adopted, they should be to include biodegradable, chemically safe fertilizers, and non-toxic pest control. Require all revenues generated by using these areas to be devoted to the maintenance and upgrades, allocated to be consistent with priorities specified in the plan. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. I look forward to your reply. David Kyler, Center for Sustainable Coast. There have been no other comments received from the public.
Michelle, thank you so very, very much. Okay, the committee meetings are now concluded. We will now immediately move into the board meeting agenda. As such, I now open the April 21st, 2020 board meeting of the Jekyll Island Authority. And our first item is the minutes of the February 18, 2020 board meeting. I need a motion and a second. Is there a motion to accept?
Mr. Chairman, this is Tripp. With your permission, I would like to make a motion that we adopt all 8 items on one singular vote, if that's permissible, please.
Tripp, I'm hesitant to do that. I would prefer to go through each one. So we'll begin with the motion, and the seconds required. Is there a motion to accept them?
Mr. Chairman, this is Melissa Cruthers. We can adopt a consent agenda if it's allowed.
If the board wishes to do it, I do not, but if the board wishes to do it, I'll certainly yield to the board.
There was a motion on the board to adopt all 8 items on the action items under a single vote. Is there a second to that motion? Second once, second twice. This motion dies from a lack of seconds.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the minutes of the February 18, 2020 board meeting as presented? Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second, Glenn Willard.
Bill Gross.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor will say aye.
No, sir, I would like to call the roll if that's permissible.
I'm sorry?
May I call the roll?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Thank you, sir. Joe Wilkinson?
Chairman, there is an option, if we don't want to call roll on all of these in the interest of time, we can have anyone who votes nay to state their name, and otherwise all those who vote yay will be those who are in attendance. If the board would like to do that. And this is Melissa Cruther speaking.
Yeah, no, Counselor. I was going to recommend that. I guess, is that under Roberts, or is that, do we have that in our rules and regulations and policies?
We do if, under our bylaws, if it's presumed to vote a yes unless there is a nay.
Yeah, and I was going to say without objection, and if anyone objected, I was going to ask them to state their name. So can we go ahead with that then, you think, Counselor, and approve the minutes?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Any objection to adopting the minutes of the February 18th, 2020 board meeting as presented? Chair here none. It's adopted. Motion's adopted. The next is the fireworks tax grant of $7,259 to purchase turnout gear for the Jekyll Island Fire Department. We received a committee recommendation to approve the fireworks tax grant of $7,259 to purchase turnout gear for Jekyll Island Fire Department. Is there any objection to adopting the amendment or the motion? Chair here none.
Chairman, this is Melissa Cruther. I would also ask if there's any discussion, but we don't have to do a roll call.
Okay, any discussion? Chair here is none. The motion is adopted. The next is the Firewise grant of $5,000 to Jekyll Island Fire Department. Board members have received a committee recommendation to approve the Firewise grant of $5,000 to the Jekyll Island Fire Department. Is any discussion? Chair hears none. Is there any objection to adopting the motion? Chair hears none. The motion is adopted. The next is the Georgia Trauma Commission grant at round one. And I want to double check this, $1,452, and is that 31 cents?
Yes, sir, that is
we
correct.
Have three. Okay, and for the department. Any discussion? Is there any objection to adopting the motion? Chair hears none. The motion's adopted. The next is the Georgia Trauma Commission grant, round two. And I want to double check this number, $1,726.54 to the Jekyll Island Fire Department.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Any objection to adopting the motion? Chair hears none. Motion's adopted. The contiguous conditions policy, board members have received a committee recommendation to approve the Jekyll Island Authority Contagious Conditions Policy. Any discussion? Is there any objection to adopting the policy? Chair hears none. And in the motion, chair hears none. Motion's adopted. Next is the Jekyll Harbor Marina sale, right of first refusal. Board members have received a committee recommendation to decline the Jekyll Harbor Marina right to purchase. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Is there any objection to adopting the motion? Chair hears none. The motion is adopted. Consideration of COVID-19 commercial lease relief recommendations. Board members have received a committee recommendation to approve the COVID-19 commercial lease relief recommendations. Is there any further discussion? Is there any objection to adopting the recommendation? Chair hears none. The recommendation is adopted. And I didn't know if we have any other comments from the staff or board members. Don't hear any. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. It's been moved and seconded. And I'm sorry, I heard someone. Okay. Is there no objection? Then we are adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, staff.
Yep.